Well, hello there. How is everyone? You amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. It's Sunday. That's it, baby. It's Sunday. The day of rest. Are you resting? I'm not resting. I'll rest when I'm dead. You're looking absolutely amazing on this stupendous, sexy, sweet Sunday. We're going to get straight into the meat and potatoes because we have seen that in the document summary, there has been two things. Basically, a request to extend page limit, which normally comes when the judge is going to get dumped with a massive doc. So when that does drop, we shall go over that because I think it's going to be an interesting one. And what is it? It's the prosecution, their comeback to the motion for a request for continuance by the defence off the back end of the Dateline NBC media hit piece. But what has happened is we was expecting an objection of some sort, weren't we? I think everybody did. But in fact, it wasn't an objection that came through that document. It is in fact something different, something that I feel is potentially, for those who are talking about it, being, I don't know whether I can say misrepresented to people who are listening, or they have just made a mistake, or even further than that, I've made a mistake, which is more than possible, because we're just human and we make mistakes. We look at information, we see things, and we have an interpretation of that information, and we see it, and that generally forms either a guilt or a middler or a Kohberger. But let's have a look. We will have a look and see what this document is, and see what your interpretation of it versus what my interpretation of it is, and see whether together, because you let me know in the comments whether you think that I'm wrong, but it is in fact an opposition rather than an objection. Are they the same thing? Are they different? Is one worse than the other? Is an opposition what some people are considering, and that is that this is kind of a weaker attempt when they want something to be done, but in fact that they're perhaps too scared to say? Again, it's possible. Again, this is just my interpretation, but let's just touch on the summary of it first. You might not be able to read that, but I need to be able to read it, and I don't actually have my glasses. So I need to sort that out, don't I? It's not good, is it? That's better. So we have got in court proceedings the terms opposition and objection to an order can have similar meanings, but they are not always interchangeable. While both terms express a disagreement with an order or application, opposition often implies a more active and sustained challenge to the order, while objection can be a more general statement of disagreement, often made at a specific point in time. Elaboration. Objection. An objection is typically a statement of disagreement or protest, often made in response to a specific point or issue raised by another party. In court, a lawyer might object to a statement or evidence presented by the opposing side. Opposition is a more active and sustained challenge to a court order or application. It involves a more comprehensive effort to prevent the order from being made or to have it overturned. Examples: a person might object to the introduction of certain evidence during a trial. Someone might oppose an application for a charging order by filing written evidence of their objections. A party might oppose a court order for sale of a property by contesting the underlying judgment. Differences. Scope. Opposition is often broader and encompasses a more extended process of challenging an order, whereas objection can be more focused on a specific point. Timing. Objections are often made in the moment of a specific issue or question, while opposition may involve a series of actions and filings. Action. Opposition may require more action, such as filing written evidence, attending hearings, and presenting legal arguments, while an objection may only involve a verbal or written statement. In summary, while both terms express disagreement, opposition generally implies a more active and sustained challenge, while objection can be a more general statement of disagreement at a specific moment. In court, both terms can be used to describe different forms of disagreement with an order or application. So again, look, this is just my interpretation of the information that is set forward with respect of the differences between these two. And like I say, there are some people who would suggest that, and they are showing evidence, don't get me wrong, they have shown evidence, but what we also have to consider is that what some people say on one point and then how they end up going the direction they take can be very, very different. Things can change on a dime. In this case, certainly. But from my understanding, which again, I come from a place outside of the US, so, I have limited understanding of US law, and I can only interpret the writings the way that I interpret them. But what I feel the difference is, an objection is more snappy. Someone says something and we say, nah, objection, Your Honour, not happy with that. Get it shot, get it done, and a statement as to why. We don't want that, get shot of it. I think what they're doing now is, because it's a much more serious situation, I think that they are taking a much more serious approach to it. Because this potential situation could have ramifications later on down the line as well. Just say that a continuance isn't granted here. You and I both know that this is likely going to be one of the main things brought up should there be, there will be an appeal later on down the line, and this will be one of the things that is thrown into the mix. So what I believe that this opposition does is it gives the prosecution a platform to raise a much more extensive argument against what is being requested. And not only to challenge it in the moment, but to get everything on record while it's all fresh, and we can go in on it now if it comes up later in an aforementioned appeal. So I don't think that the fact that this is an opposition is a good thing. I don't think that it's I say it's not a good thing. That depends what side of the fence you're on, bearing in mind that I'm someone who is well in the realms of, I feel that they have lacked, evidence publicly, at least, to show that Bryan Kohberger is guilty of this crime. And I feel that it's also going to be very, very easy to, when we look at this alternative suspect, to put someone else on the chopping block alongside Bryan Kohberger, because ultimately it is just circumstantial evidence, and some of the things that people are kind of resting all their laurels on, so to speak, are quite weak, because we don't know any of the rest of the story around it. We're yet to hear any kind of rebuttals at all, with reference to the Amazon purchase, for instance. Yes, on the face of it, it looks bad, but you've only heard one side of the story. We can make anything look bad when you've only seen one side of the story. With respect to the car, I'm not even entertaining the car at the moment, because, again, I've not seen one piece of footage where I look at it and think, that's definitely Brian's car. I just don't. But no, with respect of objection versus opposition, my interpretation is that this is the prosecution sticking their heels in, and they really don't want this to be continued. And I think that they are also planning on making sure that they cover all their bases again in the event that this does later on go to appeal. So this can't be brought up as some kind of attempt to say that the trial just wasn't fair. Then what is the opposition? What can they bring forward as an opposition? Because, again, think of that terminology itself. An objection is that we don't want it. An opposition is to say, look, this is an opposition to it. You're saying this happened, and you're saying that this is the ramifications of that. Now we are saying this is what happened, and this is actually the ramifications of that, or the lack of ramifications, and this is why we are telling you this. And, I think of this challenging structure and what they could potentially do, and I think the downside is even pre-Dateline, this last one, it wasn't like there wasn't a lot of stuff out there in the public domain that was basically crucifying Bryan Kohberger. Was there anything really that they brought out that was new? That's going to be the argument of the things that they brought out that was new. Is that the things that did the most damage? And I think that's going to be what the rebuttal could potentially be. It wasn't that there wasn't any pre-trial bad publicity and everybody saw Bryan Kohberger in a brilliant light prior to that going live. That's not the case. The case is that this just added to an already shitstorm of crap that was out in there. It's going to be whether there was a tipping point, and that's going to be the issue. So we'll see what they do come back and say, because ultimately it has been extremely bad press. But I did a video on a guy, I can't remember his name. He's had a head like a bit of a meatball the other day, and he said, there are procedures and structures set in place that should be able to protect the accused, the voir dire process, to try and get through to the jury to say, look, don't listen to that. Make sure that you only take these things into consideration, yada, yada, yada. We know there's going to be bad press. Try and ignore that. If you haven't been subjected to it, don't, as the trial goes on, don't fucking be reading or looking at anything. I know there's structures and procedures set in place, so I know what some of this rebuttal will be. It will just be interesting to see how they try and get out of the fact that regardless of what the outcome was and the bad press, the bad publicity, it's how that information got to be seen in the first place, which seems to suggest prosecutorial misconduct. It does suggest that. Or a leak within law enforcement that seemingly look to specifically damage the case, and you have to ask yourself why. So sometimes it's not so much what happened and that impact, it's about trusting the system itself is functioning in the way that it should in accordance with the law. And if you've got potentially the prosecution or law enforcement around the case leaking information to the media, then that's the bit that really should be focused on. The fact that the system is broken down, and it could potentially, even if there's a 1% chance that it could affect the accused's ability to obtain a fair trial, and that has been caused by the people within the system and their misconduct, then this is a no-brainer. There should be ramifications that lead to Bryan Kohberger walking free on the grounds of the aforementioned prosecutorial misconduct or misconduct of law enforcement around the case. I know it's something that you don't want to hear. It's that some people won't want to hear it. But if you allow the system to do whatever they please, this isn't just a case of the ends justifying the means. It's how far does that misconduct go? If you open those gates, them floodgates, where does it end? You end up with a system that not only is corrupt, is broken, but then you have a broken system that is for sale to the highest bidder. And that's a dangerous place to be. Love you all. Mwah.